But here is Ted Cruz, not up for re-election, I guess, at this year, talking to Michael Noles. This is from his what is
The
it?
Verdict with Ted Cruz.
It's
The Verdict.
his podcast.
His podcast.
That there is a real risk if you are that slacker barista who wasted 7 years in college studying completely useless things, now has loans and can't get a job. Joe Biden just gave you 20 grand. Like, holy cow, 20 grand. That, maybe you weren't going to vote in November and suddenly you just got 20 grand. And, if you can, get off the bong for a minute and head down to the voting station, or just send in your mail-in ballot that the Democrats have helpfully sent you, it could drive up turnout, particularly among young people.
That the barista has a job, though, Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Quite literally in your example. It's inherent to it.
I love this idea of stoners who are on top of their mail-in ballots. Like, that's a nice little image of people who smoke.
Well, it's also sort of fascinating because it shows there is absolutely nowhere for them to go. I mean, they're going to try and drive this resentment about folks with student debt. 45 million people in this country have student debt. That is of the adult population. You're talking about 1/6, 1/7 of the population, and they all have friends or parents or children, and so it is a really extraordinary attempt. I think what it shows is there is no response for them for this.
Nope.
There are attempts to say this is going to increase inflation. There's not a serious economist who believes this because it's not an injection of new cash, particularly at this moment, since we've had a moratorium for almost 2.5 years. And so there is no real argument against this other than it should be more generous, or we should be talking about other forms of debt that exist as well.
Yeah, like professional debt for truckers and things like that.
Well, there is a decent amount of vocational debt that will go because there are folks who get degrees at these 2 or 4 year colleges that can be let up. But yes, there's a whole host of other things that we could be talking about in terms of debt relief, but they can't argue that. And so it is to create this caricature of young people. And I would also argue that when Ted Cruz goes on and talks about people who are dealing with this type of debt, that they're just losers who aren't trying to do anything other than to get high on their bong, I guess, he's also going to drive some youth turnout out. Well, at one point it catches up with them.
It's easier to caricaturize people when this isn't, as you say, affecting literally everybody in this country, at least indirectly. And Ted Cruz knows a thing or two about not working hard. I mean, Cancun Cruz, right? He has the gall to talk about people not working hard when he jetted off on his vacation in the middle of the state's extreme.
He was escorting his family out. You would have done the same thing, Emma.
I know.
So brave.
Next time he goes to Starbucks, Ted Cruz is in for a rude awakening. Next barista he encounters, a little surprise in his cappuccino.
Yeah, let me just take this in back and put the special sprinkles on it.
And can you imagine if the media, if the media represented those percentages of who supports it and who's against it? If that was representative on like Meet the Press, for instance, how bad the Republicans, how bad a shape they'd be. But the media basically like acts like they have a real argument.
Well, I mean, the poll that I read off, I mean, everyone is characterizing those numbers as if like, it's a close call, but it's not a close call. The fact, I mean, and we saw this also with Biden's, with Biden's numbers, like in general, you will see the mainstream media, the corporate press, make assessments that if Biden's approvals are falling or something like student debt relief is not a clear-cut winner, that the problem is people in the middle are having misgivings. No, it is people to the left who want more action, more of this, not less. 65% of people are either agree with $10,000 of debt cancellation or believe it is necessary but insufficient. That is what is not being communicated because it cuts into the narrative.